This time on Holy Ghost Notes.
Dude, that was juicy.
I'm not real interested in starting a podcast.
I get it. Reading between the lines.
Blew a piece of equipment up, and here we are. Hello and welcome to Holy Ghost Notes. My name is Matt Greiner, and I have my co-host Tim Anderson on with me. I am currently on tour in the back lounge off the tour
Home
bus.
Sweet home.
Yeah, we're back where we started.
Yeah.
If it's your first time or you're new to Holy Ghost Notes, this is actually where it all started. Not on this exact bus, but Tim, you called me a long time ago now, and you were like, "Hey, we used to talk more. We don't talk at all now. I miss our conversations about God and drumming. I feel like I haven't had those kinds of conversations recently, and I miss them. I feel like we should, not only talk more, but we should record it and start a podcast."
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not real interested in starting a podcast. And here we are. How many years later?
Yeah, over 2 years
A while.
now. That's wild.
Yeah. So
I was
it's
pretty apprehensive
really
about it.
good to be
if you
doing
had said
this.
no, I would have just dropped it, and I never would have started a podcast. If you're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, not now, I'd probably been like, all right,
Yeah.
and went on with
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Well,
Wild
I think
to
some
how
of
little
it
decisions
was.
can change.
I just didn't really feel like I was in a place where I had anything to contribute to a conversation. I felt like I was looking for. I felt like I needed help. So how was I going to help anybody else? And how was I going to have a conversation that could help mobilize someone that was stuck?
Yeah.
I was going through a tough time, and actually, it's interesting when you look at the Bible and you look at what God does to people, what God decides to use in people, and what kind of people God decides to use. It's interesting how many of them feel ill-equipped. And actually are ill-equipped.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right?
It's the line says something like, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And I feel like that was me in the beginning of this podcast, and it's really a profound thing to be sitting in the back lounge of a bus again and be recording a podcast with you after being off tour for 18 months, because this is really where it all started. And what God's done in my life in the past year alone is amazing. I'm just really, really grateful, and I can see how God has orchestrated things in my life, and also
That's
through
awesome.
the podcast. So thanks for calling me and inviting me to do this all those many months ago.
Of course. My pleasure. It is really funny
Yeah.
that, you brought that up, just how, I felt the same way, and I was struggling. I had the desire to do a podcast just because, I guess it was like the thing to do, is the trend, and I finally figured out what to talk about. When I figured out what I could actually talk about, you came to mind first, obviously, for who to have those conversations with, and then, but I was feeling the same way. I was like, I don't know, like, I'm not going to be able to contribute more than, like, the Drumeo podcast already does to drums. And, like,
Sure.
like, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to faith. Like, I was questioning things, and, but it's funny how, like, when you're not equipped, like you said, it's we actually left.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, I was able to attend the Philly show, ABR's first show back on tour, and Matt and I met up briefly from a distance after the show, and what I walked away with from that experience wasn't so much the hype of the show or the thrill of seeing an old friend who I've talked to but haven't necessarily spent any physical time with in years.
Right.
I walked away with actually just a little tidbit of a conversation that we had, and it was essentially just like, Matt, you were talking to me about how it was going to be interesting going into this tour because every other tour before, it's been so important for you to have that interaction with people. Be able to go up and talk to them and shake their hands, give them a hug, pray with them. And you were just saying, like, you believed that good things were still going to come from this tour despite all the COVID protocols. And so we started talking about just how, like, what it means to be a witness. And I even put a post out about this, I think, on our social media. But what it means to be a witness is just, it's to be there to see the thing happen. Right? And then you talk about it. But, like, we don't have to have the resources to be a witness. We just have to be there to see it happen. And I think that rings pretty true with this podcast as well. Like, we had we didn't necessarily have what we needed to say, or we didn't have it figured out. We just had to watch it happen. We had the conversations and kind of flush things out that way, which was really kind of unique and interesting, I think. And I think why we have such a loyal following is because, all of you listening can relate to the conversations we're having, because we're not coming at it as professionals or as scholars. We're coming at it from a place of, I want to know about this. I'm trying to figure it out.
Dude, I have a great quote to contribute to this point you're making. It's from Rich Mullins, who wrote Awesome God. And someone posted this recently. I love this. To your point, I feel like a spectator on this tour to what God is able to do, even in a weird time like this. I have a lot of stories I could tell you, but I like the way that Rich Mullins puts this. He says, "It's so funny being a Christian musician. It always scares me when people think so highly of Christian music, contemporary Christian music especially, because I kind of go, I know a lot of us, and we don't know jack about anything. Not that I don't want you to buy our records and come to our concerts. I sure do. But you should come for entertainment. If you really want spiritual nourishment, then you should go to a church. You should read the scriptures." And of course, I'll take what applies to my experience on this tour, which is like, we really don't know jack. And I think that you can run with that and say, God's using us as musicians in a metal band, to do what he intends to do in people's lives. And it's not because we are equipped to do it. Certainly you could go to a pastor or a therapist or a connect group or somewhere and find the kind of spiritual help and nourishment that you need. But God has a way of arranging people in other people's lives to help them, right, in a way that only they can. And it's only because of God that that's happening. So there was a guy that came out 2 days ago to our show in, it doesn't matter. He came out and he had tears in his eyes. He said, "I just lost my dad." And he said, "Your Christmas music really helped me." He said, "I know it sounds kind of silly, but like one of your Christmas songs just really helped me through that time." And I felt the Holy Spirit nudging me to just go up to him afterwards and, of course, respect the COVID protocol we have in place, which is like, we need to be really careful how close we get to anybody because we're trying to do a 7-week tour and stay healthy. And to your point, that's kind of what we've been talking about for the first 5 minutes here, is like, these are weird times, and it would seem as if it defeats any inclination that God can be doing something between us and the fans coming out because of that space. But there's still opportunity. I went up to him and I said, "Can I pray for you?" And he said yes. And I prayed for him and for his dad's legacy. And he was tearing up the whole time. And afterwards, I said, "You know what? It's going to be all right. Hang in there. Anything we can do, through this show, this is for your dad." And I walked away from it just knowing, if I wasn't in a band on tour, able to do this, maybe this guy would be in a place where he would feel like he doesn't really have anywhere to go, anyone to talk to, anyone to trust, anyone to relate to. And those opportunities happen, I would say on this tour, they've been happening daily, Tim. It's been like a somewhat common occurrence. So
yeah, that's wild. Yeah, there's something to be said. A lot of people just discount music as something that isn't spiritual, and I think we often like as Rich Mullins kind of put it, like put an emphasis on like contemporary Christian music or just Christian music in general, as if being a Christian musician is any different than being just a musician. It is entertainment, but it is also a tool. And I will say that, like, I've had some really spiritual experiences that were brought on by music and very easily discounted just because it's like, well, that song, just moved you. It's just the song. But the thing is, like, music is still a creation. God still created music, and he uses it as a tool. I mean, he, heaven's described as a massive worship service, right? Like, so if you think about it that way, it's like music is really a tool. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it doesn't matter what's being said. I remember, like, one of the most spiritual experiences that I can recall is I was at a retreat, and I was sitting, and we listened. The youth leader put on this song that I absolutely hate, and I'm sorry for all of you listening that probably love this song, but it's a song by Mercy Me called "I Can Only Imagine." I loathe.
You hate that song?
I loathe this song. I don't know if it's just because I've heard it so many times. Like, it was just always on. Every single church that I was at played this song relentlessly. It was on the radio. It's very popular. It's a very popular song. I did not like this song. The youth leader decided to put this song on, and for whatever reason, this time, with this song on, the whole room was brought to tears. We were all just sitting there listening to this song, and he just, like, implored us to listen to the lyrics and try to understand what the song was saying. And for whatever reason, this time, I mean, if I've ever seen the Holy Spirit move, it was in this moment. Yeah. There was a room full of like middle school kids, and we were all bawling our eyes out. And it was a stupid song that I hated. So, it's not always just touching music that it's the music that did this to you, that made you feel this way. I think that God can move through music, and it's a pretty powerful thing. And that's probably why I love music so much, I think, is because it's a powerful tool. We've talked about it before, just even with movie scores and stuff. If you watch the movie without the soundtrack, there wouldn't be a whole lot to it. The music adds so much. Yeah,
that'd be a different experience. Speaking of, have you seen the movie Tenet? T-E-N-E-T?
No, it's on the top of my list. Christopher Nolan, right?
Okay. Yeah. I saw that in the theaters, and it was so loud. It was so loud, I thought something was wrong with the sound. The soundtrack was incredible, but it was so loud, right out of the gate. It just blew your eardrums out. It was so loud, the dialogue was hard to hear. Oh, wow. Well, then I was talking to a good friend of mine from home, and he's like, dude, have you seen the movie Tenet? I said, yeah, that movie's so loud. He goes, yeah, it's incredible. The soundtrack's amazing. I was like, so it was loud for you too? He said, yeah, it was very loud. And I think that they might have intentionally mixed it loud so that it created that kind of experience for everybody. Yeah. I can't decide if I loved it or hated it. Like, the music was cool. I just wish it was quieter. Now I sound like my parents talking about my band. The music is cool, but why do they have to scream? Yeah. But it was interesting. If you have the chance, check out that movie and let me know what you think.
I will. That's funny.
Yeah.
So we've got a good one for you guys today. I'm just going to do a brief intro and then I'll let Matt take it. But our topics today kind of follow the same pattern, and I guess the overlying theme is the why. We talk a lot about finding your why as a drummer. So that's going to be the basis of our drum topic today. We're going to deep dive that a little bit. And then our faith topic, similarly, is also finding the why, understanding why we do things and why it's important to know the reason behind why we do things and why that can be a slippery slope to just being a religious act and why that's a problem. So, yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Matt because he's got a lot of juicy material to share.
Yeah, that's the goal, right?
That's the goal.
Well, I want to start off by saying this was an episode that took some work to get off the ground. So I left for tour, didn't have the right tools, blew a piece of equipment up, and here we are. So if you've been in a situation before where you're frustrated, you've been in a situation before where you feel like giving up, you've been in a situation before where you're wondering, is it worth it? Does it really matter? This episode's for you. Because the reason that we give everything we do to the things in our lives is because that person or that thing matter to us. And we believe that there's purpose and value in it. And I believe the reason behind that is because God put in our hearts a desire to live a life that glorifies Him and loves other people. And for me, drumming might be the best way to do that. I think that God's given me the gift of drumming, not so that I can just hit drums hard and play real fast. I love drumming for those reasons, but I think that, after playing for 20 years, you figure out a couple things about what you're doing. And it certainly is nothing that I could have manufactured on my own. I believe God's given me this for a reason. And that reason is not just a gift to me, though it is that. It's a gift to other people, and it's a gift to God. It's a way that I can give back to God. It's a way that I can hopefully put a smile on people's faces with the help of my band, all of them performing and playing their instruments. So I just wanted to preface this entire episode by just saying, if you're in a tough place, if you feel like you're stuck, if you feel like you're immobilized, if you feel like you're directionless, this episode's for you, because once you figure out your why, you can establish a direction. You can establish motion in your life. And you start to figure out that things matter. The little things matter. The things that people don't see matter. The sacrifices matter. The good and the bad days matter. Your relationships matter. Your hobbies matter.
That's right.
And when you can attach value to those things in your life and those people in your life, then your life starts to take on a different form. There's more joy, and there's a more honed pace to your life, instead of just rushing around trying to get everything done, or instead of just, wallowing back and sitting, in despair. Both places are somewhat natural for any of us to be at any point in our lives. But for the majority of our life, we can find a peace, like the Bible says, that passes all understanding. And so we're going to talk about that as it pertains to drumming. But then, of course, as is the case with Holy Ghost Notes, we go on and we talk about God too. Drums and God.
Drums and God.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
So as far as drumming, yeah.
If you had any reason to give up this podcast, at least for the remainder of the tour, you had a bunch of pretty good reasons this
I had
time
a reason.
around.
Yeah,
blowing
it
up
was
an interface and
blowing up an interface and trying to figure out how this plugs into that,
Yeah.
plugs into this.
Yeah.
And Tim, can we make a phone call and record video on our phones at the same time? Like,
no, I guess not.
oh my word, I guess not. So the drum topic today is really the why underneath of everything. When you sit down to play, what is your motivation for doing so? So when I started playing, I really looked up to the drummer for Newsboys. And all I remember is that I went to a show and I looked up and I saw him, big smile on his face. I think his name's Duncan. and I saw him playing just a real basic 4/4 rock groove. I, of course, didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about drumming. But you know how when you see someone doing something and you can't understand what it is, but you know that if you spend time doing it, you can figure it out? That's the feeling I got when I watched him play. So I remember I have that memory just like cataloged, and I was playing piano at the time. I quit piano, asked my parents if I could get a drum set. They said no. I said, why? And they said, because you've been into BMX, motocross, skateboarding. You've been into things, and then you just sort of leave it in the grass, and we have to move it when we mow kind of thing. I'm like, well, it's a valid point. I'll just get a snare drum. They said, you play a snare for a year, and you learn to play Wipeout, you can get a drum set if you stick with it. So I did. A year later, I bought a drum set for $850. Pearl Export, Tim.
Yeah.
Pearl Export with a chrome wrap on it. Chrome finish.
Yeah.
Big toms. I had to like bank them like Lars Ulrich so I could play them. And I played every chance I got. I didn't have a double bass pedal yet. I wanted one badly. I'm like, if I can get a double bass pedal, I'll be good at drums. Like, that's all I need.
Do all those pop punk beats you've been trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. I can't do it with one foot. I'm not that good. So, I'm still not that good. I still need two pedals. Still need two. So anyway, I got, I really looked up to this band called Zayo. I fell in love with heavy music after seeing a couple of heavy bands at Creation Festival. And I followed this band called Zayo, and I met, my dad drove me out to meet him in York. His name's Jesse Smith. I bought his Mapex. Double bass pedal came with it. Tama Iron Cobras. And started ABR. I started ABR. And so all through my 20s, I was touring. And the only thing that really had my attention consistently over that decade was drumming. It was so close to me and surrounding me, and all it's the only thing that when I sat down to play, I felt like it was giving me more than anything else could. I don't know, like if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, okay, what in my life is like drums for Matt? Maybe it is drums, but you can be doing your job for 8 hours, come home and still feel unfulfilled, like you didn't really do anything that day. And you sit down or you stand up or whatever it is, you do this other thing for 10 minutes and you feel like you can go to sleep knowing you put in a good day because of that 10-minute activity, right? That's the way drumming is. So I remember working a landscaping job through the summers, coming home, practicing at night. The landscaping job was fun, but I felt like it was taking me away from that thing that I really was designed to do and needed to do and wanted to do, which was drumming. And as soon as I got to my drum set and could play, I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I was made to do. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And it's almost like that story we talk about a lot called Leaf by Niggle by J.R. Tolkien, where he was in the middle of writing this massive narrative and he had to take a break because he became overwhelmed at the thought of not being able to get it all out. Like, what if I die, or what if I get sick and I can't get this whole story out? And so he writes about this person who has to do all these other things in his life when the thing he wants to do is paint. So he has to take care of his elderly neighbor who's sick, and he has to go about his day working, and he just feels like there's all these things that are getting in the way of him and the thing that he wants to do. When I read that, I'm like, that is me and drumming. Like, there's all these things that I know life consists of, but there's this one thing that I just really want to do, and I feel like all these other things are getting in the way of that. And fortunately, I'm very blessed. God gave me the opportunity to do this as a career. So I've been playing drums and touring for a long time now, and drumming still has that place in my heart to this day. But my perspective of it has changed in that it's not just a gift for me to have, it's a gift that God's given me to be a good steward of so that I can give it away. And the why behind my drumming is, what can I do with this that can benefit other people? What can I do with this that can benefit me? And what can I do with this that can glorify God? And once you establish those elements in whatever it is in your life that God's giving you, you're able to detach yourself from it being your identity, and it more so being a gift that you can hold with your hands wide open. Like right now, I'm holding my hands open, and it's sort of this act of surrendering it and saying, you know what, God's given me this. I'm happy to steward it. Feel blessed to have it. Grateful to give it away. And if it goes away tonight or tomorrow or next week or next year, it's not going to devastate me. It's not going to ruin me. And that's been very, very freeing for me because, obviously if something is your identity other than God, according to the Bible and the Christian way of thinking, then that thing will be in a casket one day and you'll be looking at your God saying, what am I going to do now? Tim Keller talks about this. Like, what if your spouse is your God? Or what if you are your spouse's God? At one point, one person, one thing in your life that is your God is going to be dead, and you're not going to have a chance to, you're good. You're not going to have a chance to, to have it anymore. It's not going to give you life anymore.
That's right.
So I want to speak to those of you who feel discouraged in your drumming, who feel lost in your drumming, who feel unmotivated in your drumming, and say, open up your peripheral vision a little bit wider than just what you're doing on your drum set, and just think about the fact that you play this instrument for fun, and it's not only for you to enjoy, it's for others to enjoy, whether you're posting videos on Instagram or YouTube or playing in a live setting. And it's also, if you're a Christian and you believe that God's given you this gift, it's something that you can give back to Him to glorify Him, because in the end, it's something He gave you.
I love that. Dude, that was juicy.
Was it? It might have been like juicy. A medium well done, Delmonico.
Well, I like medium well. It's okay.
Actually, so do I. Yeah.
So, I'll start by saying that, like Matt said, the reason that this is important is because, ultimately, if you're putting all of your stock into one thing, and you lose it, then you lose it all, right? And yeah. It's like, and that's why, we've set our sights on something eternal. A relationship with Christ is such a solid foundation. It's talked about in the Bible as a cornerstone for that reason, because if you build your house on that foundation, on that cornerstone, then no matter what happens, that foundation is not going anywhere. It's solid. It's strong. And so on the drumming standpoint, for me, I feel like, I was thinking back, trying to figure out, like, when I figured out what my why is or was. And I feel like I've actually gone through seasons of trying to chase that why. Because when as long as I can remember, I have loved music. I've loved drums. Yeah. It's never been a question, like, I've always known what I wanted to do with my life. I've always known what my passion was. In fact, so much so to the point where when I was having conversations with people, I would ask them, like, so, like, what's your thing? And they'd be like, what? Like, I don't know. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what do you love doing? Like, what's your favorite thing to do? Like, what can't you live without? That was my question, because I knew without a doubt it was drumming and it was music.
Yeah.
It was never a question in my mind. And so even like when I'd have conversations with my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, but I would ask her, like, what are you passionate about? Like, what's your thing? She wouldn't be able to answer that question. She's like, I don't know. I could do this or maybe do that. I might go to school for this. I don't know. And I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't comprehend how someone could not know without
Right.
a doubt what their thing was. And so it's always been hard for me to like break away from just knowing that this is my thing. Like, but that's not a why. So for me, like I was chasing the why. When I was younger, I played drums and I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to play drums in a band. Couldn't find a singer. And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll be the singer. I can't find someone to sing the songs that I'm writing, so I'll sing. And then I dropped drums for a while. And then that band broke up, and it was like, okay, well, I guess I'll play drums again. I love playing drums, and I just played drums for myself, really. And then I played drums, and the goal was I just want to play drums until I can, be on tour in a successful band. And being on tour in a successful band as a drummer was the why. Then that didn't happen, right? And now I'm at a place where I'm realizing my why has shifted from I just want to be in a band to I want to be in a touring band that's successful. I want to make this a career to, you know what? I just love playing drums and I want to do it whenever I can.
Right.
And I'm realizing more and more, and it's, I say drumming and what I'm actually saying is just music. I think the why for me is actually what I said earlier in this episode, that music is so special. There's nothing like it. The way that it speaks to me, the way that it speaks to other people, the way that it moves emotion, there's just nothing like it. It is so special, and the fact that I have any grasp on the broadness of music makes me that's my why. I have a grip on that that piece of the cape of music, like holding on to that, and I have it, so I'm just going to keep holding on. That's my why, because every time I feel upset, I turn to music. Every time I am excited, I turn to music. There's nothing that that draws me quite like whenever I go to a church, the first thing it's like I'm listening to the music. I'm analyzing the music. That is just it's like the fabric of my being. I don't know how else to describe it. So finding my why has been difficult, but I think ultimately it's so much a part of me. I love it so much that any chance I get to play music, to play drums, I just want to take it because it's fulfilling. We've said it many times before, but it makes me a better person. I'm my best me when I have music there. So that's my why. I want to be a better me. And it's not always drums. Like I found recently that, sometimes it's hard to get on the kit during the day, and I'll go a couple days without playing at all. But I'll find an opportunity to pick up the guitar and write a song or cover a song or just play music for a little bit. And so I've been trying to do that more and more, and I've noticed that kind of hits the same, not exactly, but it hits, the same vein there. So my why is just, it makes me a better me. I feel like I'm fulfilling who I was created to be. And it's not as simple as just being successful or going on tour or being in a band or it's literally just if I get to experience music for myself, it is awesome and I'm better. So that's my why.
I think that brings up an interesting point about how we are better people to be around when we have something that gives us independence and gives us life and gives us joy.
Yeah.
Like that that point you made, you kind of just made it, but you've definitely made it before. I think it was in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, that you're a great person to be around if you have access to your drums or to music. But if it's been a couple days or a couple weeks, God forbid, you have to spend a whole lot of time with you. And I'm kind of the same way, and it makes sense because it's like your lifeblood. It's something that you enjoy doing, and when there are things getting in the way of you and that thing, other things start to. It's not that they're a threat, but you start to devalue other things in your life. So a good example of that on this tour is that I bought a scooter, Tim,
Yes.
I bought a
Very
$300 GoTrax scooter. This episode brought to you by GoTrax. Pick up an electric scooter or electric bike. They are actually linking up with me. They're going to be sending me another scooter. It goes 45 miles on a battery. My current one, just guess how many miles my current one goes for.
20, 30?
9.
9. Yeah, so hopefully they're hooking you up with something.
9 and 9. Inglorious Bastards. 9. It goes for 9 miles, and I have to be kind of concerned about where I am because am I going to make it back? Plus, if you enter in hills, that's going down to like 5. So anyway, I got the scooter. I told the guys, this is going to make me a better person to tour with. I need to get out. I need to, in all seriousness, I need to have my independence realized outside of this bubble and touring party. So just the simple fact of me leaving the parking lot of the venue and scooting around, what I'll do is I'll Google search for things to see in, for example, Raleigh, which I haven't actually done today. But maybe it's botanical garden, or maybe it's a cool building or something, and I'll actually just scooter my way there, come back, and it does a lot for you. And so to your point about, if it's been a couple days since you've played or you've been around music, it kind of takes away from who you are and who you can be to other people. I think that that's something we can all learn from. If you feel like you're just not yourself, your relationships are fractured, and you're just like, man, I'm not nice like I used to be. I'm not the same kind of person that I was before. What happened? Maybe try to evaluate what aspects of your life have changed. What haven't you done in a while? Whether it's journaling, or going to church, or riding your bike, or working out. There are a lot of different things that we tend to compromise on. And I would argue what we're giving them up for is a lot of times, garbage, whether it's swiping on Instagram or just, mindless TV or whatever it is. It's like that stuff's just not going to edify you the same way that something else is.
Yeah.
Like, for example, for us,
not that it's not needed at times. Yeah. Sometimes you need to veg out and let your mind relax, but as long as you're not losing sight of the things that are most important. And to your point, my wife at this point can recognize. She's like, maybe you should go play drums for a little bit. No, babe, I don't have time. I can't today. She's like, no, you should probably go play drums.
You need to.
Okay, right. I get it.
Well,
reading between the lines.
I saw your cover of Reliant K, and I know I commented on it, but Tim, you have a really good voice.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, it's very Matt Thiessen.
Yeah.
Your voice does well to cover Matt Thiessen, which, by the way, I looked him up after.
I wanted to be him for a while.
I think you and a lot of people. I looked him up after I saw that because I'm like, I wonder what happened to Matt Thiessen. I used to be friends with some of those guys, Matt Hoops.
Yeah, good guy.
And I couldn't find Matt Thiessen. Like, I couldn't find him on Instagram.
Yeah.
Are they still a band?
So they are not technically. I think they still put out music occasionally. It's just the Matt Hoops and Matt Thiessen. Officially at least. He's very reclusive. He's very he doesn't really put out much about his personal life. I've always actually respected that. I've only talked to him a handful of times. Always had really good conversations. He's always been really polite. But he was definitely the guy, like, at all the festivals we played at, I would spend time hanging out with Ethan Luck, who was their drummer for a little bit. I'd spend time with Matt Hoops. They'd be out and about. They'd hang out in the green room. They would interact with people. Matt Thiessen was always the guy on the bus. He wanted his alone time. He was definitely not an extrovert, great on stage, like I said, polite when you talk to him. His writing was just It's really
Oh my
shaped
gosh.
me as a writer, I think, more than anything else. I for a long time, I always wanted to cover his music, so all my bands have covered his music. I've always played stuff of theirs live. And when I was younger, I wanted to, he got me into pop punk, him and, Blink-182, and, so like I wanted to sound like
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And so that had a lot to do with why I sing the way I do. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But
he's
yeah.
a great songwriter. I mean, just listening to that song that you covered, it took
He's
me
so
back
good. Yeah.
to that record. I'm like, man, this guy is so good with melodies and harmonies. I haven't listened to this record in a while. I'm gonna have to throw that on today on my scooter ride.
Yeah.
I don't have Spotify Premium anymore, but I think I could just load up Spotify and search for Lion K and it'll just play a whole bunch of random stuff, which
Yeah.
might be cool because I really only listen to what's the record? I
Yeah,
think that
it's
was
my
the one
favorite
that I
one.
listened to the most.
Yep.
What's another record before that?
Before that one, there's a few before it.
Two Lefts Don't Make a Right,
Two
but Three
Lefts-
Do.
Yeah, that one's directly before it. The one after that is actually really good. 7 years ago.
Oh, that's the one I know.
I feel like he really came into his own as a writer from, actually from Two Lefts. I think he really started writing some really just phenomenal music. But then was like, start to finish. That's probably my all-time favorite album.
Yeah.
But then, just from then on, like, he got less pop punk,
Right.
but more introspective and articulate as a writer, which was really cool
Yeah.
to see happen. So there's a lot to appreciate.
I feel like I'm saying a lot.
Yeah, same. I think that's
Whenever
I
we're
think that was
talking
like on
about
purpose.
I'm agreeing
they
with
picked the
you.
album because they know people are gonna. Yeah.
Thanks, Thiessen.
If you're listening
and
to
Hoops.
this, go throw
and
on the
Ethan
line.
Luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We'll have
right.
Ethan on at some point. We talked to him about coming on the show, so we'll
That would
have to
be
make
cool.
that happen one of these days.
Yeah.
He and I have had some really good conversations, actually similar to what we talk about on this podcast quite often. So we'll have to have him on.
That's cool. Good stuff, man. That was
Yeah.
that was a good conversation, and I hope it benefited you as a listener. And we'll
Yeah.
move on to the God topic now, and they're sort of seamless topics. So let's
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah, I
see
think
where it goes.
To just add to the drum topic, I guess in moving into our faith topic, if you're not a drummer, I know a lot of you that listen aren't drummers. I think this topic still applies. Finding your why, finding your thing, and knowing why it's your thing is important because it can make you a better person.
Yeah.
So anyway, moving into our faith topic, I'm going to try my best not to word vomit. I've had a lot of stuff on my mind and a number of life changes and just a lot going on. That's all kind of related to this topic. So I'm going to do my best not to word vomit. Some of this is going to be some like regurgitated content. But I think that's just because we're starting to narrow down on what we actually think is important to talk about. So
Yeah.
so I'm going to start by telling a story that I'm fairly positive I've told before, but it's either been a long time, and so those of you who know this story, it'll be nice to hear it again, and for those of you just joining us recently, it'll be a brand new story for you. But I love this picture, and it starts with basically there's a couple. They're getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner. The wife chops off the top of the turkey, puts it in the oven. The husband asks, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Well, that's how my mom did it." I don't know. Continues on with the meal. Later that day, they ask her mom, why did you chop the head off the turkey? She's like, "Oh, I don't know. That's what my mom always did." And so later on, they ask the grandma, Why did you chop the head or the top of the turkey off every time you put it in the oven? And she said, the pan wasn't big enough to fit the whole thing. So generation after generation, they've adapted this way of doing something because the way of doing it had to be altered
Yeah.
for what they had available to them, right? And this is such a beautiful picture of the issue with religion. There's a lot of things that we do, and this was like really agitating to me as a kid when, asking why was just what I did naturally. Why do we do this? Why is it this way? I can't tell you how many times I've asked why, and the answer was, well, I don't know. Like, that's a good point. I don't know why. And it frustrated me to no end that we were doing all these things, following these rules or doing things a certain way, and it was so important that we did it this way. But there was no reason for it. No one ever explained we do it this way because of this. That has always been my issue with religion, and I understand that the word religion or religious isn't widely understood in the way that I understand it. So I've, gone through stages of how to answer the question when someone comes up to me and asks, like, if are you a religious person? Are you into religion? A lot of times what they actually mean is just, are you a Christian? Do you go to church? Or do you, do you love God? And so for a long time, I was so against religion that I would say, no, I'm not a religious person, and just leave it at that. But now I'm like, yeah, I know what you're asking me. I'm not going to get super nitpicky about the answer. I'm not going to go through a whole, theological reason as to why I'm not religious. But this has always just been a thing for me. And I think it really is at the core of a lot of our conversations too, is like my frustration with the church is often just religious reasons, like things that we're doing these things for no reason whatsoever. And they're so important for no reason whatsoever. My idea of what a sinful person was growing up is so different from what it is now because I have come to learn what's important. I'm still continuing to learn what is important. So the topic today that I kind of want to discuss is just like the why. And I don't want to necessarily bring in a bunch of religious examples. I don't want to tear apart your theology. That's not my goal. My goal here is just to encourage all of you to ask why. Ask the tough questions. Why is it this way? Why am I doing this? Like, I was realizing the other day, I was sitting with my son and he wanted to pray, so like I clasped. How do you say that? Clasped my hands together. I put my hands together in that praying motion or whatever, and then I realized, like, what am I doing? Like, what does this mean? Why does everybody do this? I still don't know. I haven't figured it out. But there's so many things like that, even just in the way that we pray. And I know I've definitely made fun of some people for this, but like, why do we talk to God so weird? Like, why do we still talk to God why can't we just talk to him the way we talk to each other? Because I don't talk to Matt like, Matt, you're on tour, Matt. I'm so happy for your brother, Matt. You're like, I don't talk that way to anybody. Why do I talk that way to God? There's so many things like that. So anyway, the basis of this conversation is just, let's figure out the why. Because the difference between a religious, meaningless act is literally just knowing why you're doing it. That's always what I feel has been the clash between Jesus and the Pharisees. They were all about religious works, doing things a certain way, and that's what got them into the weeds. They were so concerned about these things that just at the end of the day didn't matter. They were cutting the top of the turkey off, and their dish fit the whole turkey. They were just missing out on turkey, and they were so dead set on it. And Jesus did not get along with them. And here we are as Christians,
Right.
following these same steps that the Pharisees took. And we're supposed to be following the steps that Jesus took. We're supposed to be trying to be like Jesus. I mean, I can't call myself a Christian if I'm not following Jesus, if I'm following Christianity or following religion, that doesn't help me at all. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Matt?
Yeah, it makes me think of my pastor, Bryce Taylor. Keep the main thing the main thing. He says that a lot. He's been saying it since I became a member there. He became the pastor there the weekend that COVID shut down the world. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, Tim? Come be our pastor. First weekend. Whoops. What are we going to do? Enter in opinions. Strong opinions. So, obviously, he's had to implement that idea into his 18 months. Keep the main thing the main thing. It's all about Jesus. I was just talking to my girlfriend about this yesterday. So, her and I talk about patience a lot, and how to be patient with people who disagree with you and maybe have a strong stance that is one that you just can't wrap your head around. We were talking about it, and we both decided that the one thing that we can control is ourselves, and the one thing that we can define as a hard line in the sand is a line for ourselves. But we all know that you can't control other people, and we all know that you can't set a line in the sand for other people to follow, that they're going to follow with authenticity and because they want to follow it. You know, maybe they will because it's a law. And so what we agreed on was, we talked about for a while, we said, well, you can control yourself and you can have a hard line in the sand about this. You can have a strong opinion about this. As for everyone else, you have the freedom to give them space and grace and patience. It doesn't mean that you don't have a hard line in the sand for yourself. It means you do, and that person can respect that in you, and at the same time, they can respect the fact that you're giving them the opportunity to have their own stance and their own opinion. And, underneath all of that is like, you got to keep the main thing the main thing. All of these other discussions, like you're talking about religion, you know, when I think of religion, I think of politics, I think of rules and regulations, I think of bickering in the church, I think of time wasted on things that really don't matter, when that energy and that time and those resources can be used to benefit people who actually need help outside of the church. And I think that's what frustrates people about religion is like, why? All of these things seem so unimportant compared to the message. Yeah, trivial to the message that you're proclaiming. So I want to go to Matthew 22, verse 34. Matthew 22, verse 34 says, "But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question: 'Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?'" By the way, this is interesting to me that they use the word trap, because when I think of religion, I think of being headstrong and being philosophical and theological and trying to dog, other ideologies and other, ways of thinking about God that aren't superior to yours. It's sort of like this game. And these Pharisees are sort of playing this game, trying to trap Jesus. And his reply, verse 37, Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments." So if we're going to talk about religion, for me it's about these 3 or 4 verses in red. It's about 2 commandments that trump everything else. And it really goes back to our drumming topic. I believe that God's given me this as a gift to both love other people and glorify God. And we all know that you can't really love someone else unless you value yourself, or in other words, love yourself. I don't really believe that you can value or love yourself wholeheartedly, or at least the Christian idea of this is that you can't fully do that for yourself or anyone else until you realize how much God loves you, because God is love. And so when my pastor, Bryce Taylor, says keep the main thing, it's for me, it really comes down to, what is Jesus saying to those that are religious? What is he saying to those that are questioning and trapping him and trying to, pull the wool over his eyes? He's making it very simple. Love God and love other people. And I think if we can keep that the why, if I can keep that the why, then when you're in a situation where you're losing patience for someone else and you're saying, what do I do here? The opinions are strong on COVID. The opinions are strong on politics.
Yep.
You can look at a verse like this and say, all right, what does it say?
Yeah. Where's your
Love
middle ground?
God, love your neighbor as yourself. Loving yourself means I like my opinions, right? If you're going to love someone else just as you love yourself, you're going to have to listen to what they have to say. And like I said to my girlfriend yesterday, it doesn't mean that you are a doormat and that everyone has the chance to walk all over you because you're loving other people. No, it actually means that you have backbone and you can stand up for what you believe in. And in doing so, people know where you stand, and you're giving other people the opportunity to establish where they stand. Keep the main thing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's like kind of the basis, I think, of if we were going to give you advice, like how do you navigate the current political and I guess it's all political these days. How do you navigate the current political spectrum?
Yeah, it is.
That would be it. Like as a Christian, as anyone really, how do you navigate it with tact? Love others the way you love yourself. As a Christian, love God. That's pretty simple. I mean, if that doesn't ground you, I don't know what does. Like, it's pretty simple. It's hard to do. Don't get me wrong. That's very difficult, but it's pretty simple as far as what where do you find your balance? So I'm gonna level with you guys. I wouldn't even say church hunting because I wasn't really looking for a church. I had come to the place where I was, kind of okay with never stepping foot into a church. And I think I said this a couple weeks ago, but I've recently become more open to attending a church again. In fact, I actually have attended church 2 weeks in a row, which isn't like, I'm not saying that as a great feat or anything. I just what I wanted really was to find a place for my kids. I realized my son was asking a lot of questions. He wanted to know, and I couldn't answer them. And I wanted to get him in a place where he was used to, hearing about this every Sunday morning, and being with other kids who are learning about this and we're talking about these things. And that was important to me. So I was looking for, a church with an amazing kids program and awesome worship and, a place where I could just kind of blend in, kind of just come in and I could serve and I could do the things that, are important to me as a person and as a Christian, but ultimately wouldn't have to stand out, wouldn't really, just something comfortable really is what I was looking for. This is like not that at all. It's so funny how God does this. So I've been 2 weeks ago was actually the very first service this church ever had.
Oh, wow. It's new.
Well, actually, technically 3 weeks ago, but there was major flooding with Hurricane Ida in this area, devastated a lot of the surrounding towns. A few houses exploded, actually. So actually the first Sunday, this church decided not to meet for a service, but actually to do church service, meet as a church and serve the community, which I thought was such a cool thing.
Yeah,
such a cool way to start a church. So this is a church plant. I never wanted to be part of a church plant. My parents used to do this, help start churches. It's not attractive. And so here I am attending a church plant first Sunday. And so this past Sunday, they've been kind of going through just the vision of the church for everybody who's just, coming in on it. And I'm just realizing so many things about myself. If someone were to ask me, like, what's the meaning of life, I would probably start by saying what Jesus said, love God, love other people. But really, I think it's also to learn. I think the meaning of life is to learn. We should always be learning. The thing about learning is it's uncomfortable. And I'm realizing more and more that I was looking for a church that was comfortable, but a comfortable church isn't going to grow you. It's not going to make you change. It's not going to help you learn. So, the pastor is up there talking about how, so they just out of the blue, sang a worship song in Spanish on Sunday. No one was ready for it. It was like, what is this? But the pastor goes on to say, and it wasn't planned apparently, they did it on the spot, but he's like, we're going to be doing all types of worship. We want every single culture to be present here. We're going to do hymns one Sunday. We're going to do, we love contemporary Christian music. We're going to be doing contemporary Christian music. But sometimes that song is going to be in Spanish.
Right.
Sometimes we're going to do an Indian song. Or sometimes we're going to do a straight up gospel song up here. He's like, we're not going to just stick to one type of worship. We're not going to stick to one type of service. And I'm thinking to myself, my one of my complaints on week one was that they're borrowing an older church from another church. They're actually sharing the space, and they have pews. And I'm like, I hate pews. They're so uncomfortable. Why couldn't they get nice chairs? And I'm and I'm getting convicted. Last Sunday, I'm getting convicted about all of these things. Who cares about sitting at a pew? And who cares if I don't speak Spanish? This is so cool. I am uncomfortable, and it's awesome. It was actually refreshing. I told someone after the service, I was like, this is so refreshing. I am so uncomfortable. and it's so refreshing. And I think that's something when you're asking these tough questions, I think one of the questions, your why or finding your why should be am I learning? Am I growing? Am I uncomfortable? Am I being forced outside of my bubble and outside of my box? If the answer to those questions isn't yes, then you should probably start wondering why those questions aren't yes and how to change that. Because, that's been this podcast. It's not comfortable most of the time anyway. We're not trying to bite off topics that are clean cut and that we learned in Sunday school growing up. We're talking about tough things, and we're trying to explore these things, and we're changing our opinions at times. The podcast you're hearing today is not the podcast episode you were hearing 2 years ago. Necessarily. Right. Coming from the same heart, same place, but
we're always learning and always growing.
That's just we're learning, we're growing, we're changing, we're adapting, and I think what we can all agree on right now is that we're all trying to navigate life right now. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on, and how do we be a light? If loving people is the goal, if that is the why, how do we do that? How do we be that? And if learning and growing and being a better person is what we want for ourselves, how do we do that? I think that should be the basis of the question.
And all that's going to make you uncomfortable. So I think that's,
and it's all going to make you uncomfortable.
That's sort of a good litmus test. How uncomfortable are you in your life? Now that's not the goal. Ultimately, is to be uncomfortable, but it makes me think of relationships. I'm happy to be in a relationship again, partly because I have a partner, I have someone to do life with, but also because I know that I have someone that's going to, sand some of those rough edges off. That if I wasn't with anybody else, anyone in a relationship knows that if you're by yourself for your entire life, then you're going to create habits that you might not even realize you have, and there's no one to really refine you. Outside of a, if you're in a relationship with other people, maybe you're friends with people that are doing that, but certainly in a marriage, you have that option of like being transparent and vulnerable to someone else. And I'm dating. I'm not at that point, but I like that aspect of my relationship, that I know it's not just me going at this alone. If I'm looking for growth means discomfort. The Bible's clear about this, and I think that we can be excited about that, because it means you're going from where you are to a better place. And in that process is that discomfort, in that growth is that pain. Like, I don't really like this all that much, but where you'll end up is a better place than where you are. So I think that that's a really good way to wrap this. It's a pretty universal idea that we can apply to our lives. But as we dial it in and pull it back into Christianity, what the Bible's clear about is that it means love God and love others just as you love yourself. I think that we can certainly all use that, especially in this day and age. So I have to head to sound check. So let's wrap this up. This is Back Lounge Tour Bus Matt's
so nice
on
to hear
Tour
you say that
edition.
Again. Man, oh man.
I have to go sound check
Let's
instead
wrap
of
this up.
like I gotta go,
Beautiful.
eat lunch. It's like, nope, I gotta go sound check.
I gotta go harvest some corn.
That's right. That's right. That's also beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, well, thank you all for tracking with us. If you haven't shut it off already, thank you for listening. Want to do some quick shout outs to our inner circle. And for those of you that don't know, our inner circle is just a group of incredible people that are backing us up. We don't make money as this podcast. We don't do ads. Although if I can get a free scooter, we might start. I'm just kidding. But these people back us up financially and also spiritually, and they're a great group of friends. They continue the conversation past the episodes, and we're just so fortunate to have them in our lives and behind us. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, I know that was pretty vague. You can check out patreon.com/holyghostnotes. You'll see a number of different tiers with different incentives, and each one of them will get you into our inner circle to be part of the conversation and see what it's all about. But some new members. Shout out to Jordan Boyd, David Graybeal, Jonathan Rush, and Nate McKines.
Nice. Welcome, guys.
Thank you guys for being a part of the inner circle. Welcome. Thank you for your support, and looking forward to getting to know you.
Absolutely.
So that's about it. Matt's got to go to sound check. If you guys have questions or want to talk more about what we talked about today, hit us up, Matt and Tim at theholyghostnotes.com, and we will see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Tim. This is good. Good to be back.
Yeah. Thank you. It is indeed.
We'll be seeing you. Peace.